Welcome to coffeeis.me podcast, where me means you, or more precisely, us. This is the show where your host, Valerian, without using any interrogation techniques, convinces coffee professionals to reveal their secrets to teach and inspire you to make better coffee and earn a few bucks on the side, if that's what you fancy. Let the show begin.
Hello everyone, welcome to coffeeis.me podcast. I'm your host and thanks to my guest, also your virtual business advisor, Valerian Hrala. Hi, sorry for the delay with this podcast, but I was working on a new content for coffeecourses.com and I was also lining up our barista representing my Slovak business, Green Plantation, on the Slovak National Barista Championship. We compete every year and most of the times our baristas end up to the second place. The saddest thing about the Slovak National Championship is that so far the winners competed with foreign coffee brands, and Slovakia was represented on the World Championship with a roastery from a different country. Personally, I feel that the barista champions from individual countries should represent the coffee culture in the given country. I wonder how American baristas would feel if their barista champion would compete on a World Barista Championship with a coffee from Canada, Holland or Bulgaria. Well, let me know, what do you think? Perhaps it is just me who is being a local product Nazi jerk. So I just want to give a big shout out to Dominik Novák, who will compete for Green Plantation on the Slovak National Barista Championship. If you feel so, send him some karma, or pray for him if you are religious. We accept praise from any religion, or just simply think of him when he competes. Back to this podcast. Thank you for all your iTunes reviews. This morning I found 18. That's getting better, but still far away from my goal 50 reviews by end of this year. I also learned that the reviews I see when I open my iTunes are only from United States. If you review the podcast from other country, I will have to go and find you on the national iTunes page. And I will. Keep them coming, so we can have an amazing new year. Other cool news is that I'm going to open the coffeeis.me Facebook group for public comments. Let's discuss coffee business together. Make sure you will read the rules of the group before you post anything. My goal with the group is that we're going to grow and learn together and not spam each other. Okay, so in today's episode, I interviewed Daniel Smith from First Fruit Specialty Coffee. Daniel is from Australia and he's a former military guy. He will tell you how to start a business with almost $0 in your pocket. I love his story and I love his innovative ways of thinking out of the box. You will like this one. I found Daniel with his article, How You Can Make a Career Out of Coffee Roasting, published in the amazing coffee blog Perfect Daily Grind. I'll add the link to the show notes so you can read it too. Well, let's begin. Hello Daniel, welcome in coffeeis.me podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, I hope you are also fine. I know it's very early, it's 8 o'clock at your place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 p.m. here, so I'm a little bit more awake than you are.
Yes, that's all right. I've had a coffee.
I had too many coffees today, but, everything for this interview.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's your coffee story? When did you discover coffee and when did you start to do coffee?
Yeah. I've only been in coffee for 2.5 years, around about. I guess my journey to coffee was a little bit different. I was actually in the army for 8 years, and kind of towards the end, I injured my back and I couldn't really continue to be a rifleman, so they moved me into the. Our battalion's quite famous, and so it has like a pub or a cafe kind of thing attached to it. And so I got moved into there and just started working in there and kind of got all excited about it after finding it for a little bit. And I was just kind of, I guess, blown away by the complexity of coffee and how much you can go into it. And I kind of figured that, people like the best people in the world are still trying to improve how they do coffee. So I guess it was kind of something that I couldn't really ever get bored of or sick of. And so I ended up doing all the barista courses that the roasting company provided. And I think at one stage I was actually the most qualified barista in the state for this certain roasting company, just because they were only new, and I just kept on doing it. And I was asking them to release the next one so I could jump on and get them. And so I ended up discharging from the army, and 2 days later I started work at a cafe in the city and eventually bought a coffee roaster, and here I am.
Well, you said you started as a barista, but barista is a totally different job as a coffee roaster.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you kind of did not enjoy the barista and a cafe lifestyle. That's why you moved on to be a roaster, or was there some other reason?
I think I had already decided that I wanted to be a roaster before I was a barista. And I kind of seen that I really like the army teaches you to do your job and also the job above you. And so I felt that I kind of had to be a barista for at least a little while to allow me to be a better roaster. That was kind of how I put it into my head.
How did you learn to roast?
I did a roasting. Actually, to go back one, I started roasting on a little popcorn popper that I'd kind of cut the top off and put a can on, and was experimenting with. Maybe did that for a few months, and then I had a friend who owned one of those little Baymore roasters.
Uh-huh.
So he lent that to me, and I spent quite a long time roasting on that little thing, which was really fun. I think those little things roast great coffee, and I ended up I wasn't happy with the profiles that it automatically sets, and so I remembered during first crack I'm trying to hold the door open a little bit to stop the temperature from racing and stuff like that. And so then kind of eventually I went and did a roasting course with a roaster up in Brisbane, and learned from there, and kind of learned as I went, I guess.
Did you research any websites before you bought the Air Popper and the Beemore? Just checking profiles and stuff, or did you just buy the roaster and follow the manual?
I bought the popcorn popper. I remember seeing a thread in a forum, and I was like, "Oh, right, okay, let's give this a go." And the mate who actually had lent me the Baymore had done it himself in that way, and so he come over and helped me modify it and get me started, and then eventually, he let me borrow the Baymore.
Cool. I remember I had a Beemore when I moved to the United States from Europe. And I remember the frustrations what you have, that it had these automatical settings, and sometimes it just doesn't do what you want. So I was very often kind of just set it up on a max and press the button like cool in order to stop the whole roasting process. But I think it's an amazing home roaster. I really loved it as a home roaster.
Yeah.
But if you want to go a step further, it's probably it's not suitable for that.
Yeah, I remember I thought I'd got it down pack, and I put it in the kitchen and I was roasting with it, and kind of turned my back, and all of a sudden the house was full of smoke, and it must have just powered through into second crack and made a crazy oily roast, and the whole house was full of smoke.
Yum.
Yeah.
So you did the army. After that, you worked in a cafe. You learned roast, and then you opened the first fruits coffee. That's your brand, right?
Yes.
So what was the motivator? I'm trying to imagine the moment when you said, okay, it's now. Now I'm going to do this. Do you remember what was the kind of a motivator? What was a kind of idea which took you to take action?
I guess up until before I'd left the army, I guess because I was getting interested in coffee, I was like, oh well, I want to open a cafe. And I'd actually I was at the parents' house, right, and I was in the bath, and so I was watching this YouTube documentary, just laying in the bath, and it was kind of about it was an old Starbucks documentary, and it went through how Starbucks started and all those type of things, but then a portion of it went to Origin, and I'd never really ever been exposed to that or knew about it, and I kind of seen the poverty that the farmers were living in, and I was really kind of moved by it. And so I'm a Christian myself, and also I'd been to a war zone, so I experienced people in poverty, and I was seeing these people in poverty, and I kind of was like I could help these people. And so that kind of was, I remember I'd it was kind of after that day where the motivation went from opening a cafe to opening a coffee roastery.
Cool. That's a great story. So you were motivated not only by business, but by the fact that you wanted to help these people.
Yeah.
The question which I often get, and our listeners always ask me to ask the other roasters, how did you start? How much money did you put in, and where did you get that money?
So I only invested $2,000 into my business originally.
Say it again.
$2,000.
Cool.
So when I was on the Popcorn Popper and the Baymore, I had made friends with the green bean importer, which was literally 5 minutes away from my house. And so he had a 12 kilo Probat that he was using in there. And so when I had done my roasting course, that roaster was actually the Australasian distributor for Probats. And so I kind of had this relationship there. And so I didn't really have to invest much because I could use this guy's roaster. So essentially I was just buying coffee as I rocked up on the day and putting it into the bags that I already had. So it was really quite an easy way to start into it because it was kind of I could, roast whenever I want. And there wasn't just a huge investment that I had to put into it to start it off.
This is an amazing tip, man. I love this. This is great. So you just find a green coffee importer, you convince them to use their roasters if they have any.
Yeah, it was very lucky, like him being so close to my house, and I just would kind of go through there, and I mentioned to him that I was doing this course, and I was like, I'd never seen his roaster on, and I was like, this guy's got like a crazy expensive roaster, and he's not using it, and I was like, do you mind if I use it? And he's like, yeah, man, no worries. I'm like, oh, sweet.
I love stories like this. This is amazing. Well, cool. I had a similar story when I bought my first Probat. I bought it as a cone dryer. I have a tiny vineyard in Europe, just, for family. And I wanted to make a little patio where you have like antique plows and things like this, So I was looking for kind of antique agricultural equipment. And I got once a tip that there is this dude who sells a cone dryer. I was like, I don't want a cone dryer, I want a plow. I said, no, just check it out, it's pretty. I said, okay. So I go to this house, and there is this guy, who has under, kind of like a blanket or whatever you call it, this plastic blanket. He has a machine, he opens it, and there it is, a Probat LG3, which is a small Probat from 1938. And it was like, visually it was very good shape. So I was like, whoa, this is cool, And I was like, okay, how much you want for a cone dryer? So he said at that time we used Slovak crowns, which I think he said like 10,000 crowns, which was like $300. And he said, I'm not going under that. I said, oh, no, you don't have to because I'm buying it right away. So that's how I started to roast on a cone dryer. Cool. So that's a great way to start to roast, to find somebody who can help you with this. And I'm just curious, so how did your first month look like when it comes to income?
Not very good. Like I worry about my product, and I don't like to release anything unless it's perfect. And so essentially the first month I'd lost a bit because I didn't really want to give out any of this coffee that I was still kind of learning with, like, because I learned on a 1 kilo Probat and then jumped into a 12 kilo that I was trying to run at 50% capacity. And so it just wasn't what I wanted it to be like. So I ended up wasting a lot of coffee, I guess, in that first month as I was learning how to do it.
Okay. After that?
After that it picked up because really, I was buying stuff on the spot and selling it for more in the following week. So it was always going to continue to grow. But I guess at the same time I was kind of I was quite excited about coffee, so I ended up buying probably every filter device that there is available and figuring out how to use it. So I guess, profits weren't skyrocketing because I was spending a lot on different toys to play with.
Oh, this story is typical for all coffee roasting businesses. So that's what we do. In my soy company, we have like 5 roasters now, and I said we have to stop buying roasters. That's enough. We have to get rid of them. This is business. This is not a playground.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do you think was the moment when you can say that you earned enough money that you can sustain your family, your lifestyle?
Well, I guess it takes, you know, a year and a half for a business to kind of get off the ground, and that's kind of very similar for me. I think still at the moment it's not something that's absolutely, bringing in a lot of a massive amount of turnover, just because a lot of my accounts at the moment are contract roasting, so I'm selling a lot of coffee for a cheaper price. But I think that if looking back on it now, if I had done different things like trying to get into cafes and probably not holding back that product in the initial stages, I think that I really think around the 12 months mark, I could have left my barista job and stepped straight into the roastery as like a full-time type of job.
So you said that you had this setup with this agreement with a green coffee importer. How did you sell it? What were your main channels where you sold your coffee?
Oh, to be honest, it was friends and family. I would roast, a 12-kilo batch and kind of be like, far out, I have so much coffee, like how am I going to get rid of all this? And I just would take it around with me as I would just go to different places. Like I think even still I always have 2 small bags of coffee in my bag. And so usually you meet somebody and you start talking about coffee and they go, oh, like, can I buy some? And you go, yeah, of course, like here's some right here, And so that seemed to be how, like, at least for the first 6 months, that's how I was selling most of my coffee.
What other channels you use now? Sales channels, sorry.
Sales channels. So I do have online store, which isn't massively successful. I think I kind of put the price a bit high because I wasn't in the I didn't have the ability to be able to manage online sales as well as the other accounts that I'm doing. So I almost set it up in that way, just so I didn't have to deal with it for the time being. But it still has been good, because the price is a bit more expensive, so the margins are quite nice in the online sales. Like I said earlier, most of them, what I'm doing is contract roasting. So I've gone to coffee events and met people and talked to people who are wanting to become roasters and, can't afford the initial lot of money that it takes to buy a roaster. So I've offered to roast for them, and that's kind of where I've seen the majority of my business at the moment.
Isn't that I'm curious about this because it's very popular also in United States now that some companies use their roasters by other companies, or they roast for other companies. Isn't that kind of dangerous for your brand?
I guess yes and no. It allows me to sell a lot of coffee without having to worry about my brand recognition. And so I see it as it's not driving my brand forward, but it's also not damaging it at all. And it's allowing me to get a turnover because I'm still learning, and so I can get all these processes down packed and sell the coffee to people without damaging my own company and my own brand reputation.
You're damaging theirs if you make a mistake.
Well, I think the coffee's good, but how they serve it is if they're going to damage themselves, because it's not, like I'm really strong on training, and so it's not usually the like if the roast is good, the barista can ruin the coffee, and so I'm kind of really I guess strict on the baristas. I actually the Lazy Dog Cafe in Brisbane, the place that I worked at after the army, they ended up using my coffee, and so the baristas there I'm really strict on and make them do it all. I guess kind of too strictly. But I think that it's really important. And so I kind of worry, I guess, about the other cafes trying to serve my coffee and not being able to impose that strictness on them because I don't have that relationship. But then at the same time, I can sell coffee to the contracts, and they can kind of do whatever they want with it, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. This was always my worry, and still is, when we sell coffee to. We don't have our own cafe in Europe, and we sell to other cafes, and some of them are great. We work together, and as you said, we train their baristas. They actually sometimes so good that they start to train us as baristas. So they really develop very fast, and they are great. But some, you just know that there's an issue with the coffee. And you cannot say, I'm not going to sell you, because that sounds, that you're a jerk. And but on the other hand, I don't know. I have the same issue with that. But talking about your first wholesale customer, that restaurant was your first wholesale restaurant. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other ones?
No, not cafes yet. We've just moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, so we've just set up in the last month. So now is the point where we're going to start going out and trying to achieve that.
So you basically convinced them because they were your friends and former employees.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I'd always, as I was roasting, I'd bring some in and be like, what do you think of this? Like, do you like it? And so over time they were like, yeah, this is great. I think this is the direction that we want to go. And they were using quite a commercial roaster before that, which was quite dark and really, dull. And I was like, look, I can bring that full body flavor, but make it taste like chocolate, not like roast. And so that kind of, I guess, they were excited about it and happy to change.
What do you think is the biggest mistakes you did so far and other roasters should avoid?
Biggest mistakes, I guess. I make mistakes way too often.
Everybody does.
Yeah. I guess I get quite excited about when I see new coffee and kind of spend a little too much on green coffee at times. But I guess one of the biggest kind of nightmares, I guess, was with this first cafe that I'd organised the other roaster to come and remove their machine, and I was going to put the new one in at the close of day, so that it would just the old one would come out, the new one would go in, and they'd be cracking on the next day for their day's trade. And so I was actually at the roastery at the time, and I was doing a roast. And so I get this way too casual email saying that they're not going to be able to install the machine today. There's been a shipment problem. And I was like, oh crap. And so I called up the cafe, and I'm like, have they taken the machine out yet? And they're like, yeah, it's gone. I was like, oh no. And so I'm on the phone to this guy, and probably a bit too much heated words kind of were exchanged, and he ended up sorting out like a temporary solution for me. But I guess at the time when I was roasting, I must have had my hand on the gas dial, and I looked at like the data afterwards, and it looked like a heartbeat where I was holding the gas dial and kind of yelling into the phone, and the gas must have been going up and down. And so I was like, oh no, I've lost the whole batch as well. So I guess the mistake in that is the stress. I've learnt to not. I guess I have a tendency to kind of over stress about things, but I think that business is something where nothing really ever goes to plan. And so to be a good businessman, you need to be able to adapt to all these changes that always kind of occur.
Yeah, I love this story. This is good. I'm sometimes catch myself to do the same, but yeah, it's very organic, the business. Do you use any marketing channels recently which work very well and perhaps other roasters can benefit from them?
Yeah, so I had been experimenting with Facebook advertising and those type of things, which I've found been pretty successful for brand recognition and those type of things. Like even when I was quite small, after doing these advertisements, I would kind of meet people and they would go, oh, I've heard of First Fruits. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, I've just started. Like, how do you know? And they would refer to it. I've also just been experimenting with Instagram. I think that I almost think that Instagram may even be like as important, if not more, for now, because it's the type of thing where you can really, it's so visual and everybody loves to see that, and you can build a marketing audience for free. It's just the time you put into it, and once you have them, they're there, and they'll always see your posts and you know look at what you're doing, and hopefully come and buy coffee, which will be a great thing.
Yeah, these are both very, very strong marketing advices. I use Facebook because in the United States, I work with online education for coffee roasters, and we use a lot Facebook, and it's really amazing what you can do with Facebook, from video advertisement to regular advertisement, just targeting the ad very precisely. So you, A, don't annoy people who are not interested in that, and B, you don't spend money on those people, obviously, because you don't want, right? So that really works well. And I agree on you on Instagram, but Instagram, has giant future, I think, and it's just starting. So if you are serious about your online marketing, I would hop on right now and start to collect Instagram followers as soon as possible. Not with a cheat, because that cheaty ways, there are these apps you can download. That's crap. That's just forget about that. But
you want to build an audience, and so you don't want your audience to be a robot. Like, it needs to be organic, doesn't it?
Exactly. It has to be people who you want to work with, who are going to buy your coffee, not just random, guys in, totally different regions and non-existent, and as you said, robots, But in my company, in the European one, Green Plantation, we started to take Instagram seriously this year. We actually hired an artist who is doing just coffee pictures. She's totally free to do whatever she wants. She's we never tell her that, now today you have to draw this or that. She's free to do whatever she wants, but she always has to incorporate our logo somewhere. And it can be even hidden. It's even better when it's just on a tiny cup, or something like that. And we play with that, and it's pretty awesome. We also started a big contest, and it's just, we're having fun. We're having a lot of fun with Instagram, and we hope that once the advertisement will be allowed, it will be very cheap because nobody will use it, only us, right? So, I have a big hopes for Instagram.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. All right. This is my favorite topic, by the way, the online marketing. So I can go on. But I guess I don't want to make other people fall asleep. So let's move on to coffee topics. I want to talk to you about your roaster. So do you own your roaster now, or is it still the same Probat what this coffee importer has?
I own my own 5 kilo roaster that I'd bought second hand off a guy I actually found on Gumtree.
Oh, what is it?
So it's 5 kilo generation 1.
Probat.
Yes.
Oh, cool, nice. So you are very loyal to Probats.
Yeah. I just think they're fantastic. Hey, like they're like the cast iron. It just holds the heat and the burner capacity. It just it's fantastic.
Cool. You said that you found it used. Did you do any good deal on that, or?
Yeah. So essentially, I picked it up. Like, this guy had it for around 5 years, and so he was quite wealthy, and he I think he'd owned a cafe, and he was like, well, I want to roast for my own cafe. So he actually flew to Germany and imported it himself, which is just crazy, right? Yeah. So he bought this 5 kilo and a 1 kilo like 5 years ago. And so I was like, oh, okay, and I seen it and kind of had a look at it when I had a roast on it, and I looked at the hours, and it only had done like 300 hours, and I was like, whoa, like this is, it's practically new. And so I ended up picking it up for probably around 20% cheaper than I could have bought a brand new one. And so the difference is that, I'm using the older roasting software, which is really, very similar and really quite good. The only problem is it has to be run on Windows Vista, so I've got an old kind of laptop computer in my roastery, which is running the software.
Cool. Did you roast on something else before, or did you roast only on the Probats?
Yeah, just on the Probats. I've had a bit of a play around on like a Husqvarna and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. How do you like Husqvarna?
I think I was talking to a roaster that had recently changed companies, and he went from a 5 kilo Probat to a 15 kilo Husqvarna. And he seemed to be struggling with it for the first little while, because he was just approaching his roast the same as you would on a Probat. And so Husqvarna's, doesn't have the big cast iron plate on the front of it, and so he would drop his heat for first crack, and then the roast would stall, and he was kind of getting all upset, and his development was really terrible. Had this real kind of funny taste coming through in the coffee. But as soon as he kind of realized that he couldn't apply all those methods, he kind of changed how he was roasting, and he's actually getting quite good coffee now, like really good development and a really nice tasting product.
Cool. We do use Turkish roasters. I have that 3 kilo Probat which my dad is using, so it's not in our company now. But we have two not Husqvarnas, but Garantis.
Okay.
And yeah, they're Turkish, and they're what they are. They're very cheap.
Yeah,
and
I think I had a look at I think they've just started to release like the newer models, and so I knew a roaster on the Gold Coast who was using the older model, and he was saying that he had to let the roaster cool to like 30 degrees in between roasts, and even you had a look at the roast and you could see the paint running, and I was kind of like, well, I'm not even going to bother getting one of those. Like that's just ridiculous.
Did you say paint running?
Yeah, so it had gotten so like he must have not let it drop to that temperature before re-roasting, and so that it heated too much and the paint had started to run, like there was kind of like a drip of paint, and I was like, well, like stuff that. But apparently the newer ones are quite a lot better, where you don't have to let them to drop to that thing, and I think they've even got a function where you can actually roast remotely or something like that over the internet.
That must be fascinating that you don't have to go to your roastery to roast. I don't know who wants to do that. But
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's there if you want it. Yeah.
It happened to us, by the way. I don't think the guys will be happy that I mentioned this, that the Garanti guys, that the paint started to melt. And they said we're roasting badly, which is like, okay. It's like, how can you roast bad? It's so badly that the paint melts. But they changed it. They exchanged it. I have to say that we had no issues with the service or the support we got. So, and now we are happy with our new 15 kilo one. But we also got recently UG22.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
So we are renovating it because it just takes some time, and it was in a horrible shape. But hey, we got it for 4,000 euros.
Nice. That's fantastic.
We can't complain.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you use any sample roaster?
I don't own any. The Ben Green importer in Brisbane had the little Probat sample roasters, like the stack of 3, I think it was. So I've used those once or twice, which have been good. I've also used the ProStar electric ones, and I thought that they were really quite good for what they were. I kind of stuffed the first one because I didn't account. I just would, was applying the same method as I was used, like a different roaster, like a gas-powered one, and ended up stalling it and taking like 20 minutes or something to do the roast and had to scrap it and go again. But I think it's quite good for what it is. They're actually using them in some roasting competitions that we're having over here. They've been getting some really good results from them.
Cool, that's good to hear. I'm not a big fan of electric ones. I want my gas, Even when cooking, I want my gas. So you said you don't have a sample roaster. So how do you select your portfolio, your coffee portfolio?
So I essentially have a group of green bean suppliers that I really quite trust, and so they send me roast samples. And kind of go through that, and I find a lot of the time that when I even cup them and taste them, that the cupping notes that they've released have really been spot on. So sometimes I don't even need to cup them and stuff like that. I just will buy them straight off what they've graded them at.
Is there any coffee which is what do you call them, the shelf breaker, or basically the people love it and they can get enough of it?
Oh, I guess I found that with my main blend that even though I really enjoy roasting, light medium type of coffee, I found that people just really want that coffee that's just before second crack and really chocolatey and really full-bodied. And I think that as much as I'd like to change that to giving people a massive kind of fruit bomb, I just don't see that going to be the majority. So I think I'll always sell. That's why I've called it the crowd pleaser. You know, I think that I'll always sell more of that coffee than anything else.
Interesting what you said. We have one blend. We call it Basic Barista. It's a very simple sweet. It's light roasted espresso, but it's Brazil, so it's a natural Brazil, so it's very sweet, you know. And we sometimes add another Brazil just to kind of like, you know, spice it up a little bit.
Yep.
So, and we just, you know, we are selling a lot of single origins, you know, very nice lots. And then we were looking at the results, the 6-month results from 2015, and we were shocked how that Basic Barista like overdid all of them. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, hey, we are not into blends, you know, so maybe blends are coming back, and maybe people, you know, do want, because everybody who does single origins, they kind of like, not really despite blends, but, you know, we don't do blends too much. We want to do those single origin stories, right? But then you look at your results and you go like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
They're okay. You know, they do well.
Yeah. I also think there was also almost like a thing against blends where maybe the story was that people were thinking that all the coffee in blends were quite, you know, a lower quality than the single origins. But like all the coffee that I put in my blends can stand out on their own as single origins, but I've kind of mixed them together to make something, you know, fantastic. Trying to, I guess, get rid of that stereotype that some people may have given it.
Yeah, I think that the past, you know, 30, 40 years gave blends bad name, because you were right. I mean, they were developing blends to mask, you know, weird flavors and put low price tags on them. But nowadays we do create amazing blends, you know, just you put two good single origins together and they create you something even better. So yeah, I think the blends do have future. And the sales prove it.
Yeah.
Do you use different roast profiles, or how do you approach the coffee? How do you decide about the roast profiles? How are you going to roast them?
I guess I'm gonna approach it you know, I'm gonna look at the notes and I'm gonna find what flavors it has in there, and I'm gonna try and roast it to suit that. So if I associate acidity with fruit, and so if I have a coffee that displays, you know, I had this Costa Rican black honey, and so it was a huge amount of fruit coming through, and so I would roast that with a higher acidity, like a less development time, a faster roast, to try and highlight that fruit that was coming through. So I guess when I'm first looking at what I'm going to do with it, I'll already have that in mind. Mm-hmm. And so the same in the other direction, where you have, you know, like a Colombian Supremo or something like that, which is, you know, it's your earthy type of coffee. So I would roast that with a little bit more body to try and highlight those, you know, those nutty caramel, chocolatey type of flavors.
Do you have any great book, movie, or internet resource which can help other roasters to grow, either in a coffee scene or the business scene?
Oh yeah, I have quite a lot of. I get that question quite a bit. Hey, and so people are like, oh, I'm interested in coffee. You know, like what can I read? Can I read something? And so I found that the Scott Rayo books have just been like invaluable to me, and I even constantly refer to them all the time, and lend them out to people. And you know, I have friends that own like a cafe, and they've just read through all three of them that I've kind of given to them. Mm-hmm. So I think that as a first, I would definitely go to that. I guess James Hoffman also has a great website called Gym 7, which is more, I guess, kind of flavor of the day type of articles. But I like it because they're normally always short and sweet, so you can just read them in 5 minutes and then like you're sweet to continue on your day. There's also a famous Australian barista called Matt Perger, and he's writing a blog called The Barista Hustle, which is essentially, you know, nothing to do with roasting, but how to be a little bit to do with roasting, but more how to be a great barista. And he focuses a lot on extraction and like a lot of depth that if you don't already have some coffee knowledge behind you, you just get lost in this. But yeah, I found that applying some of these principles kind of not necessarily changed how I do things, but kind of helped me to understand why I'm doing these things that I'm doing. Yeah, I think they've been great.
Cool, thanks. I mean, I'll put the links into the show notes so people can check these out. I love Scott Rowe's books, although the roasting is, there are some things which I disagree, but that's
same,
cool.
So do I.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think I do as well. I try to approach these type of things where I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing, but if, that looks like it's great, I'm going to add that, that learning style, that roasting style to what I do. So I normally kind of pick parts which I think can highlight what I'm doing rather than trying to copy what other people do. But yeah, so I definitely say I wouldn't agree with him 100%, but it's definitely been a great help.
Oh my gosh, this is excellent stuff what you just said. It's very important that exactly we should get motivated by these things, but not take them as granted and work on our own. And because this is how we go ahead, right? As human species, that we always think new things based on our past, right? And that's what takes us ahead, and not just copy and take everything for granted. I mean, that's what the best innovators do. They don't copy; they just take it as a motivation, inspiration. That's the right word, inspiration.
It's really important to be unique and to have your own way of doing things with the help from other people. The last thing you want is 400 Scott Rayo roasters roasting around the world. Like it's just going to be the same. It's going to blend into one.
Yeah, I agree. If you would have $10,000 today and you don't have your company, you're just free. You would have $10,000 to start your coffee business. What would you do, and how do you see your startup to grow in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Okay, big question.
I don't give small questions. I just give big questions.
Yeah. I guess I recently wrote an article for the Perfect Daily Grind, and I kind of talked about the way I did it, which was, do a course, use somebody else's roaster. But also in that, I kind of touched on something that I found other roasters have also done. So I guess I kind of love the way that I've done it, but I would like to see how that kind of channel worked. I'd like to approach a roaster to contract roast for me, and I guess I would from there try and get my coffee into as many places as I could before buying my own roaster, to go down that way. And I guess for me it might be a little bit less fun because I don't get to be hands-on with the roasting, but at the same time I think that the business would develop faster because it's going to allow you to not it'll free you up to not be working for your business but working on it. So I guess I would try to go down that path and see how successful it would be. And I guess in that I would try and spend, continue on with the Facebook advertising and those type of things. And probably what I like at the moment is my packaging, where I kind of spend a lot on the green bean, that my packaging is essentially just a sticker that gets stuck on the bag. And I'd probably try and, I guess people do like fancy packaging, like if you walk into a bottle shop, people look at the labels on the wine bottles and pick the wine based on that like packaging is so visual and so important. I'd probably try and put some money in towards that. And I think that I really think that in those 5 years you could have quite a successful roastery with your own roaster starting up, supplying to quite a few different people.
Yeah, I love what you said about focusing on the business aspect, because most of us who start coffee roasting companies are passionate roasters, maybe home roasters, maybe just love to play with roasters. And when we start business, we always think about, I'm going to roast coffee. And that's not the same. Roasting coffee is roasting coffee. Making business and creating a business is totally different. Just two different things. And while it's fun to roast, maybe for some people it's not so much fun to make business. So I think that's very important, what you just said there.
Yeah, I think that business, coffee roasting, I think is so complex and exciting. But I think that business can be that as well if you just kind of adjust your attitude towards it. Like, because really, I would love to just be roasting and making coffee all day, but that's not, you will go under. Like, you gotta have people to sell it to. And so I think that looking into business, like, I've really enjoyed learning Instagram and learning Facebook and learning how business works. I even went and did a small business course. I think that it can have that type of depth and complexity that you enjoy in the roasting side. You can apply to the business side and hopefully drive it forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm lucky that way because I love to roast. I love to develop new products, and I love the marketing aspects of the whole business. And also, I love to learn new things. So for me, the whole business experience was a little bit new. I did some businesses before, but I never tried to do anything serious. So this is more serious. So I love to read books, listen to podcasts, just grow, with the information. So I do enjoy it. But on the other hand, I had a venture when I started in 2001. I opened a cafe called Cafe Barista, still living in Europe.
Yeah.
And I hated that. I have to say, that was like, I was hating every moment of it because I was going to make coffee. That's what I thought I'm going to do. But instead of that, I was making sure that the coffee runs properly. I was making sure that the baristas come in on time. I was the bad guy who had to scold them and stuff like that, which I never did before. It's like I didn't do human management, and I did not enjoy that. I'm a friendly guy. I don't want to, be the strict boss.
Yeah.
So I didn't enjoy it then, and I would never open a cafe again. It's just not for me, But the combination of roasting, creating new products, with coffee, and the business and marketing, I do enjoy a lot. So yeah, it's just good to realize what it entails. It's not only roasting, it's also the business and marketing and everything else.
Yeah, definitely.
Got inspired? I love Danielle's story, and there will be more. Similarly, as we did it with Benjamin, I asked Danielle your questions, and the answers will be the next episode. If you feel like asking a question from one of our future guests, join Coffees.me Facebook group. The easiest way to do so is to go to Coffees.me website and click Community on top menu. If at the beginning of the show you wondered what was I blabbing about the New Year's goal and you were not listening to a previous episode, then let me tell you about my quest. I decided to reward myself with a professional espresso equipment if I get at least 50 iTunes reviews by end of this year. Nice, you might think, but what is in it for me? Well, one of you will get rewarded with a coffeecourses.com membership, which is worth $600, 3 coffees from Green Plantation, my Slovak business, value here is priceless, and 1 mystery coffee. About that mystery coffee, I cupped it, and I was pretty happy with it. This coffee will be the coffee I will use for my next venture here in the United States. No worries, I'll tell you everything very soon, and I want to build this company in a very transparent way so you can learn from our achievements and also from our mistakes. Thank you for listening and talk to you soon. Bye!